Hi there. 5 years ago, my 36-year-old ex-husband and 34-year-old wife, Ethan, got divorced. Before our split, we had been married for 2 years and had been dating for over 6 years. We got divorced because of his adultery. Soon after our 2-year anniversary, he told me that he had been having an affair with a coworker for a few months. For me, it was it. He had expressed his desire to come clean to me and give our marriage another go so that we could work things out. But there was no going back after I discovered he had been unfaithful. I asked him to move out, and as a result, we were divorced. He acquired a second wife, and I received the home. Only a few weeks after our divorce was finalized, he married the coworker he had been having an affair with. They both relocated to Philadelphia. Since then, neither of us have spoken or seen one another, so I'm kind of relieved that I didn't give him another chance. Unfortunately, the affair destroyed my brother-wife bond as well as my marriage. I will explain how. Liam, my 34-year-old younger brother, and Ethan had a tight relationship. I really originally met him since we shared the same buddy group while we were in college. Nevertheless, even though Liam and I were friends, I had anticipated him to support me during our divorce. Since Liam was my brother and Ethan had cheated on me, it was only reasonable for me to assume he would sympathize with me and support me. To my amazement, Liam already knew about Ethan's infidelity, as Ethan had told him when I informed my family that I was divorcing him due to his adultery. He advised me to stay with Ethan and try to patch things up since he genuinely wanted our marriage to succeed. I informed him I would not be staying with Ethan under any circumstances, since I was stunned that he would even consider doing such a thing. In addition, I said that after everything the guy had done for me, I was really upset that he was still choosing to keep in contact with Ethan. I had anticipated him to cut Ethan off because I was quite split about the divorce and the affair when I found out. But because Liam felt I shouldn't have expected him to cut off Ethan because of what had transpired between us, we ended up fighting about that. He expressed his desire to be impartial in this matter and maintain his friendship with Ethan while maintaining a positive rapport with me. I told him it was not going to work with me since I didn't think it was a very diplomatic position to take. At the time, I made it very plain to him that he could choose to stay in contact with Ethan or pursue a relationship with me, his sister. We had been so close growing up that it was evident that I had expected him to choose me. I made it very obvious to my brother that I did not approve of his having any kind of contact with my ex-husband. He surprised me by saying that I was being unreasonable and that he would want to stay friends with Ethan. He claimed that I was being childish and immature, and that it would be better for him to be around people who genuinely appreciated him and who wouldn't force him to pick between two individuals who were important to him in order to stroke their ego, as I was ostensibly doing. That really let me down, so I was pretty sad when that occurred, and I haven't spoken to Liam since. The last straw was that he was there at Ethan's second marriage to his affair partner. It has been 5 years, and I have not spoken to him at all. Although our parents have made every effort to mediate, we both know exactly where we stand. Both he and I go to our parents during the holidays. Although we occasionally cross paths at other family gatherings, such as weddings, we never communicate. I am at a loss for words with him. I know that a few years ago, he launched his new graphic design company, since I frequently hear from my parents about significant events in his life, such as milestones and other things. He made the decision to launch his own company with a few friends, since, up until that point, he had been working for himself as a freelancer and had been doing rather well. After 3 years, based on my parents' accounts, they appear to be doing rather well. While I first believed it would benefit them, my parents called a few days ago to let me know that Liam was having a lot of problems, and they needed my assistance. Evidently, Liam had not told them the whole truth about how well his company was doing. As a result, he was now deeply in debt, and had even faced eviction from his flat for failing to pay his rent for the previous 6 months. Unlike his pals, he is too proud to just move back in with his parents or even ask them to pay his rent, so he is stuck with nowhere to go. To that, I had no idea what to reply. I had nothing more to say, so I simply told them how sad I was for him, and that I hoped I could assist since I felt like it was what they wanted to hear. Then they suggested that if I could let him move in with me instead, perhaps I could assist him. He currently doesn't have an apartment and has been living with his girlfriend, but she has a roommate, so he can't stay with them for more than a few weeks, and 1 week has already gone by. He needs to find a place quickly, if only temporarily, so he can live with them for a few months until he can find employment again. He had turned down their invitation to stay with them, stating that after spending so much time apart from his parents, he wouldn't move back in. In addition, they offered to give him money so he could support himself, but he had turned that offer down as well. They were now contacting me to offer their assistance. Given that it had been 5 years since we last spoke, I made it very plain to them that I would not be contacting him. It was something I had no interest in doing, not to mention how unpleasant it would be. I didn't feel the need to take on anyone else's troubles, since I already felt like I had plenty on my plate. They believed that since he and I used to be so close, maybe he would accept my aid if I provided it. I was the only one who could talk to him and help him understand. Although we're not exactly on speaking terms anymore, I reminded them that we used to be close. I attempted to convey to them the likelihood that he would not accept assistance from me if he had declined it from them. However, my parents insisted that I should get in touch with him and offer my assistance, and were just not prepared to listen to me. I had to be quite forceful in the end and tell them that my choice to not speak with him was definitive. Then, during the phone, they became petty and manipulative, accusing me of being very self-centered and suggesting that I should be thinking more about my brother. They said my ego had destroyed our relationship once before, and I was going to allow it to happen again by not even making the effort to reach out to him when he was at his lowest. Since he used to look up to me and we used to get along well, they believed that speaking with him would have a significant impact. I fear that their attempt to emotionally control me was unsuccessful, even though I could tell they were trying. First update. I made the decision not to get in touch with my brother. In addition to reading the comments on my post and talking to a few friends, I gave it some thought. Everyone believed that what my brother had done in the past was extremely rude and inappropriate. Since he hadn't even asked for assistance, I didn't owe it to him to reach out and assist him. We won't talk about it if he gets in touch with me first and requests for assistance. However, I'm not obligated to contact him just because my parents think I should do so on my own. That was 4 days ago when I last spoke with them. I phoned them this morning to inform them of my choice. Since I published my initial article, they have contacted me via phone and text message to inquire whether or not I had had a conversation with Liam. I ultimately had to tell them to stop today since I couldn't fulfill their request. When I replied so, they tried to convince me that I was the only one who could figure this out in a deceptive manner. I told them quite clearly that I didn't care if I was the only one, that it wasn't my problem to solve, and that I wasn't going to become too involved in this. Then my parents remarked that since Liam was my brother, I too had to cope with the issue that he was facing. It seems that they think that because we are related, we should all approach each other's issues as if they were our own and address them appropriately. It's odd that although they stated that to me, Liam and I weren't of the same mind about what to do with Ethan's issue. By their reasoning, Liam ought to have cut Ethan off right away if he had cheated on me and was ruining my life, as it ought to have been his fault as well. Their application of these newly discovered principles to me, but not to him, defies logic. They had no response when I brought this up to them, and asked why they didn't feel the same way I did during a difficult time. Rather, they claimed that I was misrepresenting their remarks and seeking a justification for not supporting my brother. When they stated it was so incredibly self-centered and shameful, I knew they were just attempting to paint me as the villain. I thus ordered them to quit bugging me and said that although I was okay with acting in a self-centered and shameful manner, for the time being, I had made up my mind. I was going to hang up too, thinking that would be the end of the call, but my mother said something that truly infuriated me. She claimed that although she had always knew I had a huge ego and that their poor parenting was most likely the cause of it, she had never imagined me to be so callous. Maybe Liam was correct to pick Ethan over me, she said. She brought up my painful place on purpose, which I knew was because she intended to harm me because everyone knows about it, and I truly dislike it when others bring it up. And she was successful. It definitely got under my skin. Hearing that made me quite angry, so I didn't even think about disconnecting up before confronting her about what she had said. I was so angry with her that I shouted at her. She knew full well that what had occurred with Ethan and Liam was wrong, so I told her she had no right to say things like that. She attempted to explain herself by claiming that she was aware that what Liam had done at the time was wrong, but there was simply no excuse for it. However, based on my current behavior, she felt compelled to consider the possibility that, ultimately, it was the right decision to make, since I was obviously too self-centered to consider anybody except myself. They were so stupid and blind that it was very difficult to even have that talk with her. However, I was so furious at the time that I didn't even comprehend that arguing with them would be fruitless. I simply wanted to scream at them until they acknowledged that what they had stated was incorrect in order to get all of my rage out. We were at it for about 15 minutes. I responded to my parents' constant accusations of selfishness by saying that they were rude and only thought about my brother, not me. I just informed them at the conclusion of the debate that I was done and didn't want to talk to or hear from them ever again. I eventually hung up and blocked their phones right away. I've been attempting to settle down ever since, but it's really difficult since I've been so agitated. After venting my frustrations to a few pals via text, they told me that I was correct to block them. I don't need to entertain any of this longer. They have made it very obvious what their priorities are, so if they try to get in touch with me again, I should just ignore them. I should concentrate on myself. I have my own life and issues. And I suppose I'll go ahead and do it now. I have invested far more time and effort in these folks than they have earned. Second update. I banned my parents a week ago, and since then, we haven't spoken. After I blocked them and made it obvious that I wasn't going to cave in to their demands, I figured they would give up and stop bothering me. However, I noticed that my parents had arrived at my house and were waiting outside when I got home from work today. I was really tired and in no position to cope with any of this after a long day at work and being inundated. I honked twice as soon as I drew up in front of my house, telling them to leave or I will report them to the police for trespassing. They indicated they wanted to talk to me and weren't really in the mood to fight right now as they approached my car rather than driving off. They advised that rather than acting this way, I should just give them some time and leave. I really wanted them to go since I was tired and in no condition to talk about anything with Liam at the moment. I said I will talk to them later and unblock them, but I needed some time and space for myself right now. They later informed me that Liam was forced to move back in with them. 2 weeks had already elapsed since his girlfriend made it quite plain that she couldn't allow him to stay with her for longer than that. She informed him that her roommates were not cool with this, and that he had to leave when he had attempted to talk to her and ask her to prolong it. She was only going to let him stay with them temporarily. She had promised them that she wouldn't allow him to stay more than 2 weeks. She couldn't just let him live with them for free, because he was her boyfriend. If he wanted to stay with her after that, he would have to share the rent and all other expenses. They got into an argument over it because Liam felt she was being harsh and that she ought to have taken into account his situation, since he was going to have to close his business and was currently without a source of income. He is no longer even able to return there. Once more, it was depressing, but it had nothing to do with me, so I informed my parents that even if that was their purpose for being here, I was still not going to speak to him or allow him to live with me. They denied that as the reason for their visit. Since Liam had moved back in with them, they actually came to beg for financial assistance because they would now have to pay for everything. Since they are both retired, they are unable to provide for him without worrying about their own financial security. They asked me for financial assistance since they don't want to overdo it. They claimed I would only need to send them some money for the next several months until Liam was able to get back on his feet, and I wouldn't even need to talk to Liam. They stated they had done a lot for me over the years and had raised me to be capable of taking care of myself right now, so they expected me to agree without much of a fight this time. I therefore obliged it to them to assist them when they requested it. I was too weary from work to say anything, so I just stated that I had to think it over and let them know that I wouldn't be making a choice right then. Since what they were requesting of me was significant, I felt that it was very appropriate to ask for some time to consider. To begin with, I had no idea how much I would need to send each month. Furthermore, it was impossible to predict when, or even if, Liam would be able to stand again in a timely manner. I thus needed time to consider this before committing, and I also needed time to think about it. But they chose to start pressing me right there, refusing to give me that time, or to take my words seriously. They insisted that I owe them something, that I had to do this, and other such things, while I was really sitting in the car. I was becoming more and more irritated by it, so I stepped out of my car and threatened to call the police if they didn't stop their BS. I warned them not to test me, and gave them one last caution because they seemed to be bluffing and claimed to know I wouldn't do anything of the kind. They didn't go even then, so I took out my phone and did as I had promised, calling the police. I performed it in front of them, and it was worth witnessing the expression of amazement on their faces. Then, since they were so naive, they chose to fight with me until the police arrived and had to pull them off, rather than simply leaving and saving themselves. Anyhow, it's finally concluded. They remain barred by me. After talking with my attorney as well, I believe we may need to seek for a restraining order against them since the situation is getting out of control. I'm not able to handle this continuously. A third update. I told my parents that I was going to file for a restraining order with the court a few days ago when they came to see me at my home. We eventually had a conversation about it yesterday, and we came to the conclusion that we should move forward with it. Earlier today, we submitted the petition. Because of the reckless behavior that they have been engaging in, I sincerely hope that I will be able to obtain a protective order against them. Due to the fact that I had blocked them quite some time ago, they were unable to reach me in the typical manner. It appears that they have made the decision to harass me in other circumstances. Since I called the police on them, things have been going rather strangely ever since. I don't know precisely how they managed to pull it off. Perhaps they just paid somebody or something. To be honest, nothing significant occurred on that particular day. Nevertheless, the next day, I began getting phone calls from a variety of different numbers. In the beginning, I answered the phone calls a few times. However, every time I picked up the phone, the person on the other end of the line would immediately hang up. Because of this, I banned the phone number. After that, however, the same thing began to occur with other numbers, and finally, I made the decision to not take any calls from numbers that I did not recognize, since it was becoming a really strange and unsettling experience. These numbers began sending me messages, telling me that I would have to face the repercussions of what I had done and that my parents would never forgive me. As if that wasn't awful enough, I also started receiving messages from these numbers. The situation also included a great deal of name-calling, in which I was referred to as a self-centered brat and other such things, as well as the use of several swear words, which I will not be repeating here since they were so offensive. With the knowledge that my parents are the ones responsible for this, I went to my attorney and filed for a restraining order. I don't believe that any of this is normal, and I know for a fact that they are the ones responsible for it. Considering all that has transpired, I do not believe that they should anticipate any kind of assistance from me. Due to the fact that they obviously do not care about my mental health or well-being, I have been making an effort to respect the fact that we are family members and have refrained from taking any kind of action against them in the past. However, I do not believe that it is necessary for me to now care for them. On the other hand, given that they are aware of the many challenges I have had in the past, it is quite disheartening. In addition to my divorce with Ethan, I wasn't doing all that well in my profession for a few years following that. I've experienced my fair share of difficulties, and now that I'm at last succeeding, it appears that they are tired of me and want to bring me down. They must not truly love me if they can act this way while seeming to love their child, which is unfathomable to me. It's all right. I've come to terms with that. I don't find it important. Fourth update. After several weeks without providing an update, I finally obtained a restraining order against my parents. Though there was a lot of arguing, I understood. I'm quite happy about it because, from what I understand, Liam is no longer residing with them due to their more bizarre behavior. I recently started a new project, so I've been really busy at work, so I haven't had time to publish any updates. Nevertheless, they were unable to get in touch with me after my parents were served, since it would have been too risky, given what they had previously done. Liam was the one who got in touch with me, I suppose, once they chose to speak with him about it. I had never blocked him, not feeling the need to do so since I thought neither of us would reach out after we stopped talking, so there was no reason to block one another. In addition, I just forgot about it. After all that, he messaged me to express how sad he was that, in spite of everything our parents had done for us, I had gone so far against them. It was business as usual. I was being rude and arrogant, but he reminded me that they had raised us to be the individuals we are today, and we should be thankful to them. I told him it was certainly easy for him to say that when they were going above and above in their attempts to help him, and I felt very irritated when I read that letter because it was just so pompous. I suppose he also wanted to make fun of me and accuse me of being entitled and self-centered for not lending him the money he needed. I said that I was indeed that selfish, and that he had never asked me to help him, nor would he ever demand it from me. I informed him that our parents were already speaking for him, so he didn't need to ask me for it. He only needed to glance in the mirror to find someone to hold responsible for the circumstances. He phoned me right away after I sent that message, so I believe he didn't know that our parents had been bugging me to assist him for so long. I really just wanted to talk about this and get it over with, so I picked up the phone. He didn't remember informing our parents that he needed any kind of aid, so he asked me what I was talking about. After I finished telling him everything that had transpired, he abruptly hung up. I made the deliberate decision to bring up our parents' persistent harassment and disturbance of me with Liam, since I felt that he would not be aware of it. After that, I didn't hear from him again, but I found out from other family members that Liam had moved out and was allegedly living with a friend rather than his parents. He had come to understand that our parents had been pleading with me to provide them financial support so they could support him. They had even been urging me to get in touch with him at first, offering my assistance, which made it obvious that they didn't think he was capable of managing the problem on his own. They got into a rather ugly fight because apparently he thought this was an attack on him and his ability. In what manner were my family made aware of this? Of course, it was my parents who had been sobbing, telling me how I had not only damaged my relationships with everyone around me, but had intentionally spoken out of turn and turned my brother against them. My parents had called a couple of my family members, who came to me and told me that what I was doing was very wrong. So I made the decision to let them know about this as well. Everyone appeared to come to the realization that perhaps I wasn't at fault after learning the entire truth, including the harm my parents had caused me and how it justified my actions. They said they were sorry for criticizing me without knowing the whole context. My parents have become somewhat of an outsider now that no one in the family is talking to them. After everything my parents have put me through, I firmly believe that this is precisely what needed to happen. Therefore, I can't say they don't deserve it. They don't talk to each other anymore, and I'm sure they hold me responsible for that. But sadly, they are unable to take action due to the restraining order. That does not, however, imply that Liam and I are now back on speaking terms. We're still not in communication with one another, and things will stay that way until he acknowledges his mistakes from the past. I seriously doubt it will happen anytime soon, though, considering his outlook on life. Like our parents, he will always be too self-righteous and invested to take responsibility for his own faults. It's so commonplace, but whatever. I don't need to trouble myself with any of this, as long as my life is running well. I'm just going to concentrate on living healthy and my